Greetings, system failure listeners. Nate here, Brian over there. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, Nate. How are you?
It is Wildcard Weekend, Football Sunday, and I am confident that even though YouTube is now listening for people singing, copyrighted songs and then striking you if you play a copyrighted song, I'm hopeful that my off-key singing is sufficient to avoid us a strike on YouTube.
I think we'll be okay somehow.
Yeah, I think that was a fairly terrible rendition of the CBS football fanfare. But I'm wicked excited, man. Our Patriots are returning to playoff action for the first time since 2021. And I recall the last time the Pats were in the playoffs and again in the postseason against the Buffalo Bills. I watched the game from Hout Bay, South Africa. I remember texting with you at 3 o'clock in the morning, local Cape Town time. But I tuned in on the pirated streams to watch the Patriots get absolutely demoed by the Bills. And so I'm hoping the Pats' fortunes will change a little bit tonight when, the Los Angeles Chargers pay a little visit to Foxborough, Massachusetts.
Well, there's a certain contrast between the system failure message and succumbing to the bread and circus, but, I'm for it.
Nonsense. A little bit of bread and circus is good for you. We might as well, if they're going to be going off at the Coliseum, we might as well at least check the score, eh?
Yeah. Well, it's like these, contrived military rituals that you don't realize are, paid for by the military, but, it's the way it goes.
Well, we'll be sure to not be swayed by the ritualized state worship that is definitely going to be a part of the pregame rigmarole.
What about the relentless commercials for Sky Rizzy?
Well, yeah, we're definitely going to hear about some of these people's poor shredded rectums. And how they need Sky Rizzy to get their ulcerative colitis or their Crohn's disease under control. Still incredible. We should really keep a notebook and just start keeping track of all the different medication, all the different rectum medications that are being blown up on the football broadcasts.
Yeah, well, such is the degree of the American colon is in shambles. That just a whole one medication is not sufficient to remedy the issue, and a whole buffet of colon medications are required.
Yeah. Well, hey, the Olympics are coming up, and so one thing we can expect on the football broadcasts, at least on the NBC versions, is repeated advertisements for the upcoming Olympics taking place in Milan out in Italy. And Brian, we were watching the game last week. One of the games, I can't remember which one we were watching, one of the NBC concerns, and they kept on showing pictures of the Duomo, the Cathedral of Milan, this beautiful structure. And we were talking about the famous statue of Saint Bartholomew, which is standing within. We all know the story of Saint Bartholomew. He's associated with one of the 12 apostles of Christ. And of course, after the crucifixion, he supposedly ventured his way out to the Caucasus, like Armenia and Azerbaijan, to preach the gospel. Of course, the muckety mucks who ran the show out there at the time and Azerbaijan were not pleased about this man preaching the gospel. So they arranged to have his skin torn off his body while he was still alive. They flayed him to death. And the story goes that St. Bartholomew continued to preach the gospel even while he had his skin removed from his living body. So there's the world's creepiest statue there in the Milan Duomo of St. Bartholomew with his skin slung over his arm like a bathrobe. Is really quite we were looking at a picture of the statue. Everybody should look that thing up. It's quite an eyebrow-raising piece, if I do say so myself.
It certainly captures the imagination, huh?
Yeah, yes. I also have here the quote from Mr. Mark Twain when he and his entourage visited Milan in the 1870s, I think it was. I can't quite remember when he was out there, but I've got his quote here where he says, talking about the approach to the city of Milan, "At last, a forest of graceful needles shimmering in the amber sunlight rose slowly above the pygmy housetops, as one sometimes sees in the far horizon a gilded and pinnacled mass of cloud lift itself above the waste of waves at sea, the cathedral. We knew it in a moment. Half of that night and all the next day, this architectural autocrat was our sole object of interest. What a wonder it is, so grand, so solemn, so vast, and yet so delicate, so airy, so graceful. A very world of solid weight, and yet it seems in the soft moonlight only a fairy delusion of frostwork that might vanish with a breath. How sharply its pinnacled angles, and its wilderness of spires were cut against the sky, and how richly their shadows fell upon its snowy roof. It was a vision, a miracle, an anthem sung in stone, a poem wrought in marble. However you look at the great cathedral, it is noble, it is beautiful. Wherever you stand in Milan or within 7 miles of Milan, it is visible, and when it is visible, no other object can chain your whole attention. Leave your eyes unfettered by your will but a single instant, and they will surely turn to seek it. It is the first thing you look for when you rise in the morning, and the last your lingering gaze rests upon at night. Surely it must be the princeliest creation that ever brain of man conceived. And that's our main man, Mark Twain, standing in, looking at the Milan Duomo. Now, I've not had the chance to visit Milan, but I still like the quote and still, am impressed by the pictures of the building that I've had a chance to look at. So that's pretty good, eh, Brian?
Yeah. I guess I'd imagine there's probably lots of inspiring architecture in Milan, but perhaps the Great Cathedral is the most inspiring of all.
Well, that certainly seems to be the judgment of our main man, Mark Twain, eh?
Yes.
Or a.k.a. Samuel Clemens.
Is that his real name?
Yeah, Mark Twain was his pen name. He started working at some small, obscure paper in, Mississippi, or I can't remember, Missouri, I think it was. I can't remember where Twain came from. I think it was Missouri, but...
Well, Mark Twain, that is a good... it sounds like a good author's name,
yeah.
And something about Samuel Clemens just doesn't quite get the job done. Maybe...
you can see what his thinking was.
Maybe you should come up with a pen name. Something catchy.
Nonsense. I think Nathan Knopp is a glorious name.
Well, then they'll find out your name was Nathan Knopp, and people will be like, what?
You'll be disappointed. Well, that's hilarious. Well, Brian, speaking of football, one of my classic football watching buddies, one of my old chums from Florida, I got an email notification that this man up and did a paid subscription to System Failure, much to my mortification this week. The idea is not for my friends and family to be it's weird. You have this relationship with them, and now this relationship is warped by the presence of money.
It's monetized.
Yeah. But it's been a grind to get to 500 subscribers. So it did mean a lot that this man, my buddy Steve, wanted to make some kind of a show of support, so I did appreciate it. I comped the man he bought a year subscription. I comped him indefinitely after that, because I was like, ooh, this is uncomfortable taking money from people who you're supposed to be friends and family with, but still wanted to give a big shout out to my man Steve, not just for all the fun times we had watching football together, but because this is the guy that really got me into podcasting, up until I met this dude at one of he was my coworker down in Florida. My entire podcast repertoire was confined to NPR. I just saw it as a way to have NPR on demand.
Imagine that now.
Yeah, it seems crazy. But he recommended the Adam Carolla podcast. At the time was pretty. It was outstanding. It was really quite a pivotal moment in my life. So, thank you, Steve. Appreciate the show of support. My face did turn a little bit red when I saw your email, the notification. But thanks again, man. He's sometimes listener to this pod, so hopefully he'll get the message.
Well, he also recommended the Days of Thunder too, right?
Yeah, yes, that's right. Yeah, that's where we got the Days of Thunder, which is the former NFL employee Dave Damashek, and then Hollywood writer David Feeney, who's famous maybe mostly for New Girl. And they had a podcast that was just it's just one of these, you just kind of catch the magic for a little while. And they really had done that circa 2010, 2009, 2011. They had one of the great podcasts, and you have one of these professional sitcom writers, how he would say it, making the pages, and it really just made for absolutely brilliant pod. All the Days of Thunder are out there archived if anyone wants to go back and listen to them. They really are an inspired podcast effort. It was really something else. So,
well, it vicariously got me into podcasting too, I would say, Steve, because that's when I started listening to Adam Carolla and the Days of Thunder too.
Yeah, the ripple effect of just one man, it can scarcely be tallied up, eh?
Yeah, and I'm sure we'd still be only listening to NPR podcasts to this day if not for Steve.
Yes. Now, Brian, you had a little magic tournament over the weekend. Why don't you tell the good people at System Failure, how that turned out for you?
All right. Well, 66 people showed up at ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Massachusetts to slug it out in the pre-modern format. Only 8 could rise to the top, but I was one of them. I had to win 5 rounds of Magic, and with 1 draw and 1 loss as well. And, if you can imagine that the expected outcome of flipping a coin would be something in the ballpark of 50-50, it was quite the feat of entropy. I did beat, vintage legend Rich Shea, who, it was a good matchup for me, and, so it was hard to lose.
Were you gracious in victory, or did you rub it in the man's face?
I tried to remain calm. Well, the dude just has like an aura about him and the way he plays. It's like if you're, I don't know, like maybe you're playing like hockey against someone who's like a pro and like doesn't make any mistakes, but by happenstance of the situation, I don't know, you got like an opening or something, or I don't know. It's just like obvious that they know what they're doing way more so than you. But the breaks, came my way.
When I play in the beer league hockey, sometimes I fancy myself to be quite good. I have a successful outing, maybe put up 4 goals or something like that. But every once in a while in the beer leagues, I used to play in a beer league that was fairly prominent up here in Maine. So in those days, we would sometimes someone would come around who had actually played a game or two in the NHL. They were that caliber of player. And any inkling I might have had that I'm actually good at hockey, with these guys on the ice, they can just effortlessly do whatever they want at will, anytime, and there's nothing the rest of us can do about it. The gap between someone who's played 3.5 games in the NHL and had a couple seasons in the A, and the rest of us beer leaguers is way, way bigger than I ever would think it, just watching the TV and playing myself. They're just absolutely incredible. So I have some idea what you're talking about there.
Well, the thing about top 8ing a Magic the Gathering tournament, right, is you basically have to win every round. It's something maybe you don't quite realize when you first start.
Win or go home. Yeah.
Yep. And so that's basically what I did. And it was a huge grind, and it's quite exhausting, but it was a solid effort. Yep.
All right. Well, you must be quite pleased. That must have been a fun ride home. Now, you went down there with one of your buddies or multiple buddies?
Well, we ended up having 3 lads from the greater Portland area who rode down. I was the only one who top 8'd, but one thing is, this pre-modern format, which of course is not like it's like some cards from 1996 to 2003. It's this community format that the people at Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro didn't come up with, and it's all very community driven. And now thanks to like Discord, they've set up like this crew clash league, and so I'm in like a crew of people.
They meaning like Hasbro?
No, like just some like the community.
Just the community. Okay, all right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so now we're tracking everyone's performance. So it used to be like, just kind of top 8 or bust, and there's bragging rights. But now, of course, we're setting it up so that like, every round you win contributes towards the crew clash league, and so that's why this tournament was so big, is because everyone wants to come out and try to win the crew clash league. And it's not really even for prizes, but it is like now it's like a track thing, and every single one of these tournaments is going to be like, they used to be like 20 to 30 people, and now they're going to be like 66 people every time. So anyway, it's just like a big community driven thing, and not by the evil overlords at Hasbro who, have turned it into like this crazy loot box thing and, desecrated the quality of the game and whatnot.
Yeah, the capitalist bloodsuckers leave, and nothing is holy to them, eh?
Yeah, so it's a pretty cool thing. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I never would have thought in 1994 when I first turned to Magic Card that 30 years later we'd still be carrying on with, Captain Picard and Star Trek The Next Generation themed Magic Cards.
Yeah, that comes out this year. But what's more, we've rejected modernity and gone back to those very like 4th edition packs that you had back then.
Yeah, I don't like a Magic Card that's any older than Invasion, and I will
from 2001.
Right, I'll hold my nose and go to 2001. But really, I think I really think Magic jumped the shark with the release of the Mirage set in 1997. Is that Mirage? So I'm like a wicked old school when it comes to these Magic cards.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of people agree with you, and there's like a whole movement that's happening around it. So it's pretty wild. Like even people who were the person I lost in this top 8 is like this Gen Z kid, and he wasn't even alive, I think, when these cards were out.
Sure, yeah.
But everyone agrees that this is where the action is.
I love the idea of a revolt against like the intellectual property holders. That's pretty exciting. We're not going to just because you've purchased the intellectual property, we're still going to the game really isn't about the intellectual property holders, and they're not really as in control as they might like to think. So all that sort of rebellion, appeals to me greatly.
Well, and there's hilariously no ways for the folks at Hasbro to monetize this. So it's awesome.
Yeah, they already printed the cards. There's no way to squeeze us like a dirty bar rag for another nickel. I love it. Ring us out.
Yeah, well, that's what they had been doing too. So it's quite the coup. Power to the people.
Well, I have been getting into French cooking lately, Brian, and so I'm very excited to make us some braised short ribs tonight. I have to, after this podcast, I got to stop at the old Hannaford supermarket and pick up a bottle of Cabernet. I have all the ingredients, but this bottle of wine. You're supposed to add some wine to it to get it to, taste properly, cook and all that. So this is going to be I have this for Christmas. I got this cast iron Dutch oven. The thing weighs a ton, and I'm really looking forward to cooking up these braised short ribs and just cooking it down into some kind of a. With the French are geniuses when it comes to cooking. I hadn't really done much French cooking before Christmas of this year, but it's off the chain. I've been making chickens in this Dutch oven, and last week I made carnitas, as you may recall. They came out pretty good, so I'm really excited to see how this braised short ribs come out.
Yeah, well, I had the chance to sample your carnitas last weekend, and they were very titillating.
Yeah.
It was pretty solid, and I look forward to these slow-cooked braised ribs in your Dutch oven there.
Yeah, it's going to be, 3 football games with the Patriots game kicking off at 8:15 as the crown jewel of the day, Wild Card Weekend. So, love Wild Card Weekend, man. It's like the greatest weekend of the year every year. It's going to be awesome. Well, I would say that the news was absolutely crazy this week and that there's way too many things to talk about. So I do feel like we should just kind of jump into what's been going on in the world today here, Brian. Before we get to that, one final comment, though, just on the Coliseum and the Panamint Circenses, the bread and circuses, and trying to explain the merits of football to someone like maybe my mother-in-law who has not really been inclined. But I do there is definitely a bread and circus aspect to all this, but I do think that football is a great allegory for life, trying to pitting yourself against someone else, in one of these game formats, trying to overcome bad luck and adversity, trying to prepare, right? It's success happens a certain way in the movies, but in real life, success looks a lot more like some of these great football clubs, great football dynasties, like the Patriots or the Chiefs most recently. So I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of inspiration to be drawn from the NFL as a metaphor or an analog, as long as one remains cognizant of the Panamint Circenses factor that you brought up at the top of the show here.
Well, I mean, that's all well and good, but I think the real key to getting into football is Bud Light mini pitchers and chicken tenders.
Well, how about some Cabernet Sauvignon and some braised short ribs as a substitute?
Well, that too.
All right.
Maybe you can get your mother-in-law over for some braised rib.
Convince her to watch the Patriots. It would be so great if the Pats could win a playoff game and not have to bear the shame of losing at home in the playoffs, but we'll see how that pans out, I suppose.
Well, it is an over-the-top assault on the senses, basically. It's way too much drama, even though it's entirely contrived.
Yeah. I mean, yesterday we had 2 crazy come-from-behind victories, and I just know the NFL is trying to engineer these games so that there's a lot of intrigue right till the end to keep the DraftKings betting going on. They want to make sure that the games aren't a blowout so that people aren't turning off the game. They want us to watch their Sky Rizzy commercials, and they want us to be putting together these crazy parlays on DraftKings. So they got to make the games interesting. And the officiating seems to be reflecting that in a way that raises many a skeptical eyebrow among the fan base.
Well, there is a questionable history of officiating and the influence of gambling in the NFL and whatnot. I don't know if anything happened in particular yesterday, but
well, they were both wild comebacks. Is all I'm saying. 20-point comebacks.
Well, the things take on a crazy life of their own when there's when the clock is ticking down at the end of the game and your team has to score or something has to happen, and it's just unbelievably it just becomes greater than the sum of its parts somehow.
Yeah.
So despite its bread and circus nature, it is. It's quite compelling.
Yeah, it's 4th and 8, and you need 20 yards to get in field goal range and tie the game, as in the waning moments, and the fans are howling, and you're like, all right, this is it. Now this is for all the marbles. So there's a certain,
it's something about the way everyone's attention is focused on it, and I don't know, maybe it's some cold night out in Green Bay or Chicago or something, and
flurries were flying at Soldier Field last night as the Bears completed a monster comeback, and I just love that moment. They say that human reaction time is 1/8 of a second or thereabouts. And you can measure this by holding a ruler between your your index and your thumb finger, holding your index finger and your thumb out, and then dropping a ruler between them. You start at 0. You can take a stopwatch and just measure how long it takes you to pinch when you see the ruler drop. And so you can calculate it out. It's about 1/8 of a second. So when there's like a major moment, like a major interception, there's like a 1/8 of a second quiet. And then the crowd bursts into jubilee, and I just love that moment. Just when like there's you hear the whole crowd go, "Oh!" all at once. It's off the chain. Anyway, gonna be a great afternoon. But I suppose we really should talk about some non-football and Magic card related things here, because we're going to run out of time.
Lots of shocking events going on in the world. Huh?
It's non-stop, dude. It's a non-stop. Like some weeks it's like I don't know what we're going to talk about on the podcast, and then other weeks it's like there's too much to talk about. I mean, not only is the news blowing up, but like it's wild card weekend, and so here we go. Well, we have done a pod since the U.S. Snatched the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro last week, and when we were talking about that. But one observation that's interesting is that this really is there's really no justification. Like there's not. We're not pretending like it's been. Since 1941, since the United States Congress last declared a war, right? Everything else has been a police action, as mentioned in the last podcast, like the police action in Korea, and all that is done all that's done through the Article 2 carve out for emergency, like defense. The president is allowed to order the military around in like a defense situation where there's just no time for parliamentary procedures, and we have to move now. Well, then Article 2 allows the president to work the military, but like there's just no way that the situation in Venezuela could possibly fit into a national defense situation where there's no time for parliamentary procedures. So it's interesting to see that the Congress, the Senate passed a bill saying no further military action in Venezuela without our approval, please. It's very symbolic, right? The other House of Congress, the House of Representatives doesn't have a similar bill. I don't even know if it's going there, and if it does, it would never pass. And of course, even if that happened, the president would veto it, and then you'd need like a 2/3 majority to overcome the veto. So there's just no way it's anything but ceremonial, right? But the flailing of the Senate in an effort to maintain relevance is exactly what you would look for. It's exactly what happened in Rome, right? When we got like the AD and BC dating conventions, it's like the current year is 2025 AD according to our culture. And we're counting up from the year of Jesus' birth, supposedly. But you could also, because the coming of Jesus was related to the economic chaos going on in the Roman Empire, you could also kind of consider the 0 BC to be the moment when the Roman Republic became the Roman Empire, right? Prior to 27 BC, there were no emperors. The Roman Empire was run by the Senate. But then after Caesar gets assassinated in 44 BC, and then his adopted nephew Octavian takes the throne as Augustus in 27 BC. And so you can just like the 500 years before BC, like 500 BC to 0 AD is roughly the era of the Roman Republic. And then 0 AD to, what do you want to say, 411 AD, something like 500 is the empire period where Rome has like an emperor. And the transition is marked by the loss of control of the Senate over what's going on, right? They in Rome, as in America in 2025, the Senate is trying to take these actions to reassert its control, to push back against the autocratic power of the emperor, and it's just a futile motion. It's just futility. So one could almost say that what we're seeing right now matches that historical pattern, the transition from republic to empire, with this kidnapping or this apprehending, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, of Nicolas Maduro, and we're just a total, we're not even pretending that we have some kind of a national defense justification anymore, right? First it's drugs, and then it's that Maduro's a bad guy, and then it's his democracy, his democratic elections are invalid. I mean, it just, no one believes anymore. We just know that we're just wielding our power because we can, and there's no humanitarian or legal justification whatsoever.
Well, obviously they tried out the drug narrative like a bit
yes.
half-heartedly. And it seems that, well, Tucker Carlson was on his podcast after the thing saying how, well, we are an empire now. And, like, the importance of maintaining free speech for the populace. And, to me, it seems like he's trying to, like, whitewash this thing a bit. And
Carlson is.
Yeah, because, like, obviously, like, free speech and empire are, like, antithetical, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think... I guess, I should go on Kalshi or whatever and bet on Donald Trump getting like a third term, because like the natures of empire, like you can't just like hand this thing back to the Democrats, right? And so, yeah, I don't know. It seems like it doesn't bode well for the future. I don't know how the Donald's going to win the midterms. I mean, ultimately, I don't, I guess geopolitically, like oil, like apparently like is all that matters, I guess. And I guess there's like a lot in Venezuela.
Yeah.
So I don't know like how it's going to shake out in Venezuela. From a geopolitical standpoint, I don't know. Maybe it's not, I don't know, like, well, maybe it's not bad to take Venezuela and their oil fields, I guess. I guess maybe you have to. I don't know. Well, I guess you'd have to assume that this happens for a reason. Or is it just because people are greedy? But I guess like everyone's greedy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's the military industrial complex and then the fossil fuel industries in both of these. I don't know. I guess I had said last week that the grist, the military industrial complex needs grist for its mill, but this isn't a major military expenditure. It's more about the fossil fuel industry, eh?
Well, yeah, I don't know, there's a huge issue in Taiwan, right? That's like where all the computer chips come from.
Yes,
and they were talking about this on Breaking Points. And so if China, decides to repatriate Taiwan, we're going to have a problem with computer chips, and it's going to have huge downstream impacts on our economy. And so geopolitically, can America take Venezuela and and continue to keep Taiwan, its own separate thing? I don't know. Well, probably taking Venezuela is relatively easy to do from a military standpoint. So it's probably better than trying to do some crazy thing in the Middle East, right? Where there's other competing interests. So I guess that's good. I don't know. Like ultimately, there's something where like what you want to be is like in a world of where humanity's like evolving, and we are going to transcend like our species and evolve into something new. And
hang on, you're saying evolving is better than reenacting the death throes of an empire 2,000 years old?
Sure.
Okay, gotcha. Carry on.
We're trying to like accept our mantle as star children, right?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like there's this realpolitik where like I don't know, the post World War II like peace or whatever like was always a sham.
Yes.
And marked by like American transgression and whatnot. And I mean, we had the opportunity to like secure like peace with like Russia after the wall came down in 1991, but like we keep them out of NATO. I mean, for what it's worth, Tucker on his podcast is like advocating for like a Russian American alliance like against the Chinese. And well, it's
wow.
extremely
that's quite wow. All right.
Well, yeah, that was a big a big deal. I can't remember, like in the 60s or whatever, there was a big emphasis on like trying to keep avoid a Russia Chinese like alliance and whatnot, and America getting in there. And man, I learned about that in college.
Yeah, you wanted to prevent a marriage between the bear and the dragon, right? Isn't that the old saying? Meaning the Russians and the Chinese.
Yeah. So I don't know. In summation, what's my point? I don't know, man. Well, it's a wild time to be alive, I guess.
I kind of share your, like, some of the things, like this idea of the Donald getting himself first of all, the man is way too old. I mean, in 3 years, he's going to be like 90. But, like, I don't want the Donald to have a third term, but I have trouble objecting on the limiting the presidency to 2 terms was an idea to keep FDR. FDR won 4 national elections. His policies of taxing the ever-loving hell out of the rich to improve the economy for all was incredibly popular, and that's why he got elected to won 4 national elections. And the powers that be, the senators and Congress creatures and representatives who are on the take from all of the big corporations. We're like, well, we got to make sure we on the take from all the corporations, and of course, wealthy, established wealthy interests. We're like, we got to make sure that no one can these socialists don't keep power indefinitely. So we're going to impose a 2-term limit. So that's like within living memory of like our parents, like that happened. I guess not our mom, but I guess not our dad either. But there are some old timers around who maybe were born in the 30s, not in the 40s, who in their lifetime this limitation was imposed. So I don't really know how to object to the idea. It's like, well, yeah, it is an artificial limit, and the reasons it was put there I don't agree with. Now that the man in office I want out of office, it's like I want the term limits to apply to people I don't like, but I don't want it to apply to people I do like. So I don't know how to elucidate a rational argument against the idea of abolishing term limitations. And just like America has no way to rationalize preventing the Chinese from retaking Taiwan and seizing the computer manufacturing plants in Taipei, like, how are we going to object to that when we conduct our gunboat diplomacy in Venezuela? Like, on what grounds could we possibly object?
Well, we need those computer chips.
That's it, right?
It's entirely based on our ability to stop that from happening by force.
Yeah, but if you can't admit that, because people's actual sons and daughters have to die in these conflicts, so you need some kind of a high-minded justification, and that, I think, gets to your main point here. Like, the Americans, we were able to establish this global empire after World War II, and we were able to put a mythology behind it that made sense to people. This is why the Americans get to have the global reserve currency. This is why we're going to have the Bretton Woods system. We're going to have the American Navy patrol the global seaways and create this platform of free trade. And in return, we'll have the global reserve currency, and that will give us the ability to sell these treasury bonds and make all these foreign nations pay for their own military encirclement. We could put a story on that made sense to people, that people would agree to sign up and die, and sign up their kids to go in the military. But like, if it's really just, well, we need the computer chip, if it's really like resources and strategic resources, then how is anyone going to feel good about sacrificing their family members to these efforts? It's like, it's a big problem.
Well, I guess I wonder how it'll shake out. Yeah, like the high-minded narrative is something that like every human wants. They want like a story, an empowering story about themselves.
That's true.
Yeah, but obviously, just in this age of information, like it just dissolves these crazy stories, and so yeah. Well, like, I was thinking about our relationship to Israel, like, in light of this business with Venezuela. And I guess what you'd have to say is that, geopolitically, they're just way too important. Like, I guess I used to think that, like, we could, afford to just sever ties with Israel, basically, or let them do their own thing or what have you. But it's just obvious that the Middle East is too geopolitically important, I think. And so like, we should just call it like what it is. Like, we have like a bunch of crazy thugs out there who, a bunch of, bloodthirsty murderers, basically, who have no problem like bombing children or whatever. And that's just like what it is. So like, and, the crazy empire in America, I don't know, we just have to take Venezuela. Like, the high-minded narratives are crazy. Yes. And so, I think I don't know what that does to a people or like a world when we let go of these crazy things, but I guess if I had to make some prognostication about the future, it's going to be about the ramifications of the untangling of the high-minded story for just brazen realpolitik. And to bring it back to football, maybe it's like sometimes the lines are going at it and someone's trying to run up the middle, and all of a sudden you'll see something shift and you can tell that someone's gotten mangled underneath the pile, but you can't really tell what's going on. And but no one, these people are being paid millions of dollars, and while they're not going to stop just because one person's horribly injured, they're going to keep battling for every inch. And the play goes until the whistle stops, and then they wave the trainers and the medical staff and the card on over, and people say a prayer for the guy who's gotten horribly destroyed in the line of impact. And that's what's real, and what's fake is like these crazy stories of I don't know what it is. Like the whatever story we had about America was not a real story.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so it's time to get real.
Well, I mean, without the high-minded story, it makes me want to not pay my taxes and put all those funds in an escrow instead. And I mean, obviously, you would just get crushed, of course, but I just want to put all my tax money in escrow and be like to the IRS, you're not using my tax money responsibly. You're using it to kill innocent people. I can't live with that. I can't be funding that with my dollars. Sorry. So it's all going in escrow until you can, sort out your situation. So that's what I think. Without the high-minded justification, right? You remove the consent of the governed, so to speak, and that could just lead to all kinds of problems. Because really, the power has always been, and it was the same in the Roman times. Really, the power is actually with the people, and in these autocrats like the Donald, they don't really have any power at all, except that which is derived from that which is derived from us. But man, I really like that little rant you just went on. It really does kind of, that's really, I think, the discussion that we need to all be having in this day and age as the storm clouds of empire cloud the horizon.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out, because I cannot imagine that the Donald's going to win the midterms. And I don't know if one of your stories is what's going on in Minnesota with these ICE protests and whatnot.
Hell yeah, it is.
I don't know. Maybe we should try to get into it after the break here.
I see that we're already well over half an hour, and we've turned in a grand total of a single story, a single news item. So let's take a little break, and then we'll come back, and then we have we're going to end up not getting into all of it, but we'll do the best we can here. We'll be right back. And we're back. All right, well, we barely took any break at all. I'm just excited to get into these next couple of stories here. And not to draw the curtain, back too much and show how the sausage is made, but I was grinding the coffee for this morning, and I saw that the coffee beans were almost out, even after the French press already had its full allotment of coffee. So I just pushed the button and ground put some extra coffee all up in there just to get to the end of this bag of beans. And so we had extra strong coffee. I'm sure maybe some of our listeners suspected from the frantic chatter that we have been extra caffeinated on this fine football Sunday, Brian.
Yeah, it's an extra strong podcast.
All right. Well, let's see how much we can cram in here in the second half. First up, Venezuela and Cuba. You may have seen the headline on the Wall Street Journal this week, Brian. It is reporting that Cuba is on the brink of collapse after being deprived of Venezuelan oil after the capture of Nicolas Maduro. Now, this speaks to the true motivations, obviously our friend Marco Rubio, our venerable Secretary of State, comes from a Cuban-American family who fled Cuba in the lead-up to the 1959 communist revolution and overthrow of the Fulgencio Batista regime in Cuba. And I just wanted to put this little note on here. Since 1992, each and every year, right, annually, right, this is an annual tradition. It goes back to before magic cards were a thing. The UN has introduced resolutions condemning the U.S. for the crippling trade embargo that deprives innocent Cubans of critical food and medicine. Right, so on humanitarian grounds, every single year, the UN General Assembly rolls out this continuing resolution to end the U.S. economic embargo on Cuba on humanitarian grounds, people are, people are starving there as a result of these embargoes, and they can't get access to the food and medicine, what have you, that they need. And every single year, the motion is nearly unanimously approved. But it's an annual tradition for the United States and Israel to vote against the resolution. And such was the case, of course, again in the fall of 2025 when this resolution came up. I think a few other countries signed on in 25. In 24, it was only Israel and the United States. But last year there was Moldova and a few other random countries objected to the resolution for the first time. So that's an eyebrow raiser, but it's interesting. People want to. My mother-in-law is one of these folks who I've heard the argument from. Well, I have a friend whose family is Cuban, and they say that the situation in communist Cuba is terrible, and there's not enough food, and they're glad to be in America where there is enough food. And I'm like, well, okay, I mean, that's not really a reflection of communist economic policies, right? That's a reflection of the trade embargo that we have slapped on them, so that's just something worth noting. And I just thought it was also really, really interesting that the Israelis are with us, voting against these resolutions every single year to lift the trade embargo. Like, wow, it's just odd that that's Israel's role there. Clearly, the U.S. and Israel are both controlled by some kind of an entity that we don't get to vote on, that we don't know anything about.
Well, obviously, like the communism in Cuba is a sufficient threat to the America political system that we have to maintain that embargo. And I would say this is one situation in which the Israelis do us a solid instead of us sending them tons of money to keep our political system afloat. Although if you're a supporter of change in the American political system, I guess they're really not doing a solid, and you could say it's an assault on the well-being of every American citizen.
Yeah. They may not have enough food in Cuba, but it is worth noting that their universal healthcare policies their healthcare system is superior to ours in that it's a universal, healthcare system, and also that they have a vaccine against lung cancer down in Cuba that we just haven't got available up here. That's very interesting. Very interesting to note. Anyway, that being what it is, shall we turn our sights now on the great state of Minnesota out there, the state of hockey, and what is going on there? Obviously, the multiple headlines coming out of Minnesota. Obviously, you saw that Minnesota governor and former vice presidential candidate Tim Walz announced that he shall not be seeking re-election to the governor's mansion after this daycare scandal blew up because of this ridiculous viral video that's been making the rounds. This has been an ongoing scandal. There's already been dozens of convictions, I think, even not just indictments, but convictions because of this welfare fraud or this daycare fraud or the mismanagement of state funds. People are saying they're running daycares, but not really. So that's interesting. It does seem like this viral video is as many liberties as it takes actually seems to have had some kind of a political impact, with Tim Walz announcing he will not be, he'll not be running for governor again.
Well, I think the virality of this video, like this hour-long video about Minnesota childcare fraud, does not compete with the virality of this white lady being shot by the ICE agents. Unfortunately for the prospects of the Republican Party.
Yeah. Yes. That's the next headline. Federal agents gunned down this 39-year-old woman on camera. You can all go on the internet and watch the disturbing video. Fairly shocking. It just seems like they just gunned her down. This is not the first person that ICE agents have executed, but it does seem to be the one that's really captured the public's imagination. Man, I hate to say that it's a good thing that this woman has got shot down, but it does seem to be rallying people against ICE. Let's just say there's a silver lining to this horrible cloud. How about that?
Well, I don't know that enforcing immigration policy is a bad thing, but how you enforce immigration policy is another question.
Well, deportations, right? It's an ugly, ugly proposition, no matter how you slice the pie. This is what you're saying, basically?
Yes. I guess. I mean, given how ugly this business is, I guess I wouldn't have realized what these deportations actually look like in process. And I guess it does seem like some black boot Nazi-esque type thing, I suppose. And so I think the best solution would probably be just to stop immigration until until the cost of housing is somehow figured out and there's reasonable social services and not homeless people. And that seems like the best solution. Just allow everyone who's here to be a citizen would probably be the most reasonable thing to do going forwards.
We need robust. You can't allow the illegal immigration to happen in the first place. It's just too painful to unwind it. Once people are here and working and have families, it's you're not going to be able to rip people out of the communities in which they've ensconced themselves. It's just there's no list of illegal immigrants, right? These ICE agents just have to drive around and confront people who seem like they might be foreign, right? That's pretty much what's going on. Am I wrong about that? It's not like there's a list of suspects because these people are here illegally. There's not a list, right? So you just kind of have to go out and just see if you can find some brownish people who maybe English is their second language or something and confront them and try to figure out if they're citizens or not. Is there any more sophistication to the operation than that?
I I don't know.
I don't think there is. I don't think
Well, I think to be charitable to the ICE officer in question is if you watch like his body cam footage versus the other view, it's like slightly more charitable to, I don't know, it doesn't look quite as much like an execution. But I mean, obviously the woman like went out there, they're like to protest and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, she's like an observer, right? These people, they're organized into observers out there in Minneapolis. They're coordinating via text message to try to, keep aware of where ICE is at, so that folks who maybe don't have their papers in order. Man, it does sound like Weimar Germany. Maybe folks who don't have their paper in order can like avoid areas with active ICE agents or something like this. So this is what she was doing.
They are trying to like antagonize the ICE officers, and so I mean,
they definitely are. Yeah.
The nature of the way the incident is unfurled is that there's gonna be like a debate as to like what the truth is with like upset parties. And so, but ultimately, I think it's going to be a disaster for, the midterms. And, Democrats are going to get elected, and there's going to be impeachment charges against the Donald. Mm-hmm. And,
we've already done that. Yeah, that's, all.
That's like,
it's going to happen. You're right. It's going to happen again. We've already seen it happen.
And then, I don't know, that maybe that damages the Donald's chances of going for a third term. And then the Democrats are going to put someone into power who maybe will never let go of it once they're in. And so that sounds probably even worse than the Donald. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Like maybe this will be the time that the Democrats let Bernie Sanders through, but I don't think it looks good for what year is it here? For
just 26?
Yeah, for 2030, I guess, or 2028.
Yeah. Well, it would seem that this execution of this 39-year-old lesbian took place in less than a mile where George Floyd met his notorious end in the South Minneapolis neighborhood there. And I remember in 2020 going to a protest here in Portland, Maine, like a BLM protest. And I remember thinking, if I have to see another black person get executed by the cops on my social media feeds, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. I remember having that thought. But then the actual reality is that per capita, the black people are killed less by police. Like, per police encounter, right, you get more mortality for white folks than for black folks. So, like, the whole BLM narrative is based on, it is definitely true that America was founded on this like racist slavery economic system, but like it's not true that the cops are racist and are targeting black people more than white people. That is just not the reality. I thought it was in 2020. I got all swept up in the BLM thing. And so that kind of, when you said that there's going to be some kind of a protest and a counter protest with people with opposing points of view, it's kind of what made me think of like we're going to have to shake out what is really going on here and what should go on, and those points of view seem kind of irreconcilable, and I don't know.
Well, I think that there are like some racist cops who do
most def,
racially charged bad things certainly do happen. Yeah, the George Floyd thing. Well, this was. I mean, well, if you watch the video of the dude kneeling on the dudes for like 7 minutes, it tells like one story. But there are like some other facts, like the dude was like doped up crazily on fentanyl, and he like asked to be taken out of the car, and I don't know. I mean, I guess there really is no reason why he had to kneel on his neck for 7 minutes, though. So, but anyway, well, it's gonna be one of these things that's like debated a lot, and so I don't know.
There's plenty of crazy footage of white people being pointlessly gunned down by the cops too. I remember the termite exterminator man who the cops thought was a bad guy for some reason. They surrounded his hotel room, and he had like a gun on his belt that wasn't a gun. It was like a
BB gun or something.
I think it was a temperature reader. I think it was like a thing that you point, like a laser you point at something and get a temperature off of it. And he was just like totally confused, and he was just like he was like lying down on the ground, putting his hands up and lying down on the ground. But the cops saw that thing and just gunned him down, and then that was just it for the guy. And it was all just a big misunderstanding. So I mean, like, yeah, it's crazy the narratives that you can get out of a single video. But that video I just mentioned will not be famous, whereas everyone's watched that George Floyd video back in 2020. It's just like because it matches a certain narrative. And the last thing I just want to mention about Minnesota here is that we all probably also remember back in June when those two Minneapolis lawmakers were gunned down in their own home. Remember that happening? like a crazy dude. He was gonna, I guess he was going to kill more lawmakers too, but he ended up killing this husband and wife who were like Minnesota, state lawmakers. I mean, and that just like, it begs the question, like, what is going on? Why is Minnesota the epicenter of all the chaos roiling the country in the past couple of years? It's really strange that it should all be like localized to like Minneapolis. I don't get it, but
happenstance.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, okay. So you may have seen in Tehran last night, a bunch of people killed. Protests are escalating there. The angry Iranian mobs are screaming for the reinstallation of the son of the Shah, who was ousted in 1979, who now lives in England in exile. And so it seems like things are heating up in Iran. And Israel announced it could strike Iran again this past week. The Donald said that we are, quote, locked and loaded and ready to go with further military action against possible against Iran. And it's really looking like that 12-year war, the B-2 strikes that took place back in June, where we took out the Fordo uranium enrichment plant. Now seems like that we may just have been at like a brief intermission, and we may be right back to military action in Iran sooner rather than later. And war clouds on the horizon, not a great feeling, eh?
Well, certainly the action in Venezuela doesn't bode well for peace with Iran. Well, I don't think that America can afford to get dragged into some crazy war in the Middle East and not lose Taiwan, basically. So I guess that's we'll just have to hope for that.
It does make me think like those who voted for the Donald because they thought, well, I mean, it's not that the Donald is this trustworthy character, but it would be too shameful to like run your campaign on no new wars in America first, and then no sooner do you get into office than you start doing more wars. It would be too shameful to just bold-faced, nakedly go back on your campaign promises, but such does not seem to be the case. I mean, there is just no mechanism to hold candidates to their campaign promises whatsoever. And that really makes me wonder, what is the point of even voting? We're just voting between the two, both the Republicans and the Democrats are part of the same structure, the same hidden, veiled hierarchy that has both the U.S. and Israel acting in concert here with possible action against Iran, right? Is voting just kind of some kind of a ceremony to manufacture consent? And is there any point? Like, would it be better to just have mass voter apathy as a statement, or would that just clear the way for even more autocratic abuses of power? I don't know.
Well, certainly the corporatization of the Democratic Party is like the death knell of a democracy, huh?
Yeah. There's just no one to vote for, man. Other than the Bernie Sanders, but of course they get blocked.
Such was the defeat of Jimmy Carter by Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Fueled by like the whole Iranian hostage scandal.
The story goes, for those not in the know, that Reagan was able to influence, forestall a resolution to the Iran hostage crisis until after the election, so that Jimmy Carter wouldn't get credit for it. So that really goes to show that all the world is a stage, the men and women merely players, and each has their entrance in their exit, and one man in their time will play many parts. That's the quote. I butchered the quote, but you get the music of what I mean to convey here. Brutal. All right. So that just leaves one last story here. Perhaps cognizant that the Donald has blown off his mandate from the voters, and that the situation in Venezuela and Iran doesn't really benefit average Americans. It benefits massive American corporations, or possibly some kind of an unseen political hierarchy that wants to move pieces around the geopolitical chessboard. But perhaps an acknowledgement that all of that is tanking his popularity. The Donald is trying to attack the affordability crisis here. A couple of announcements this week. Now, these are announcements. They're not actions. So I guess I'll be looking for you to opine, Brian, on whether you think any of this will actually come to fruition, or if this is just an attempt to string people along. But the Donald intends to ban institutional investors from owning single-family homes, causing Blackstone stock to plummet some 5.6% on Wall Street on Wednesday. Pretty wild stuff, eh?
Probably a good time to buy Blackstone.
Yeah, that's a good thought. Yeah, man.
Well, So, man, that would be awesome if he actually did it. Man, it's hard to be optimistic. But I guess, I don't know if Blackstone plays the same kind of geopolitical importance. If I had to bet about whether we're going to go to war with Iran, well, yeah, I guess, the oil is extremely important geopolitically. And so that seems like a good bet. Yeah, I don't know. I'm unclear if Blackstone plays some kind of significance geopolitically where we can't afford to have them, stop buying single family homes.
Yeah, we can't have their stock going down by 5.9%. Much better to to ravage the American working and middle classes than to let these corporations have to suffer, with decreased profits.
Well, maybe the Donald can work out some kind of deal with the corporate shareholders where, yes, we will brazenly go to war for oil and whatnot, but we're just going to have to, maybe he can leverage his, political currency into that. But I guess I'm not optimistic.
In another move, the Trump administration announced that the Donald is going to direct his, quote, representatives, I don't know what this means, to purchase $200 billion in mortgage bonds, right, in an attempt to drive down the prevailing interest rates on those mortgage instruments, thus making housing hopefully maybe more affordable for the middle class. That doesn't really seem like an effective economic policy, even if enacted, because you're just going to drive up the cost of housing will just increase. People can just only afford a monthly payment of so much. That's the reality, and whether that's interest or principal doesn't really matter. And I just think that if you lower the interest, then the principal will just rise to compensate. But still, you can see that the Donald's trying to make things more affordable here. And then one final note, also, the Donald is calling for a 10% cap on credit card interest rates, and that's one that could really that's one that really hits the banks right in the wallet. Interesting to see these Bernie Sanders, the Donald rolling out these Bernie Sanders style policies now that his popularity is in a state of collapse.
Well, it all sounds like too little, too late, and stuff that probably won't happen anyway. Yeah. And man, he should have come out guns blazing from the get-go with this kind of thing, rather than pursuing these tariffs, which seems like they've mostly amounted to nothing. I don't know. I certainly haven't seen any benefit to my well-being based on these tariffs.
Certainly not. It's just a justification for further inflation. Yeah, it's interesting that it's clear that they know, right? The administration understands what is going to help the middle and working class, right? They get that. It's just that they're completely unwilling to help us until we turn on them for repeated military misadventures and total mismanagement of the economy. So it is telling that these, that these sorts of policies are the ones they turn to when they need to goose their popularity in their sagging poll rate, their sagging polls. So that really tells the story, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's all the stories I wanted to turn to today, Brian. I think we can probably go ahead and wrap up there. What do you think?
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride this week, man. But I always like to remind our System Failure listeners, pay us a little visit over to systemfailure.org. There, you can read the weekly historical essays written by yours truly, and if you're so inclined, you can sign up to have those essays delivered every single Sunday morning in your email inbox. I think you'll love them. The quality is finally getting to a place where I'm very proud of the quality of these essays. So sign up and then leave me some comments and let me know what you think. And also, if you want to get in touch with Brian or me and let us know what we're missing in our political and economic analysis, you can accomplish that tidy feat on the About page simply by clicking on the appropriate name.
All right, we'll see you, folks.